Okay. The next thing I'm going to mention here, and this is something that really becomes it's more of a encouraging you to get make the most out of the software you buy here, is using Logistic to generate labels. Crystal reports can be effective for generating labels. It has some weaknesses that make it maybe not as good as something like Bartender or Label Matrix or Waspware and the other dedicated label printing softwares, but it can be effective for doing so. And basically all you do is you just write a Crystal report and you set the printer to a label printer. In Crystal, all of your screen is going to get redefined to be for a label, and then you just, when you print it, you just print it to a label printer. It's pretty straightforward at that level. I pull up one I've pre-designed here. I've got one called Customer Label, where I've just got, if I go to my page setup, you'll see I've set this to point to a Zebra or Z4M, and I've got various different fields here kind of set up to run it like a barcode printer. And what I've also set up is within the shipping entry screen, I've added under the macro on my Logicity, I've added a print customer label. We can bring this up, and it'll give you a label for the pack list information you have on the screen there. So at this point, you just hit that and print it off to a printer. That's the kind of simple way to set it up. If you want to get a little bit more elaborate, you can have this thing auto print. Actually, I think I've got that on the next screen here. So let's take that label, for example, in shipping entry. Maybe instead of making somebody click on macros, Logicity, maybe when you do a shipment, you just want to automatically fire a label off. The way you would do that is you would keep your Crystal report exactly the same. You don't need to change anything there. But in your solution file, what you do, I've got another one here called Ship Entry A. You turn off workspace mode because you don't want it to bring up this dialog first off. The next thing you do is under the Action tab, instead of viewing it, you would just set this to say Print. You pick your printer here, I'm going to send it to Z4M, and then you just hook that up as an Unsaved Macro. So to do that, all you got to do is you just come in, you select Logicity here, and then what you'd want to do is just come up here and type a different name in, so Unsave. It's going to tell you macro does not exist, but that's actually fine. What that's actually just more of a notification that it didn't exist, but it does now. So if I go back in, I've actually got an Unsave here. If I pull this up, the only other thing you'd want to do is the solution file. I wanted to keep both of them here, where I've got my normal Logicity menu, which is the workspace mode, but I've also got this one that prints automatically. Remember, I just had an A at the end there, so I just typed that A in. So now when I hit save on a new pack list, it's just going to fire that thing off and print those labels for me automatically. Go ahead and delete that, because otherwise I not understand why I have stuff keep printing when I'm trying to use shipping entry. Any questions on that?
No, that looks good.
All right, next thing we're talking about is adding non-reports to the Logistic menu. So this is just more a very simple convenience feature here, but we have the ability within the Logistic menus to add things other than Crystal reports, RPT files. And the idea is that you may have some stuff going on in Excel or Access or something like that that is a report, but it's not done in Crystal. So you've got some data entry that's involved or something like that. You can add any document that has a valid file type association to these Logistic menus. To take that even further, you can use the screen fields to help determine the proper file path to these files. So to give you an example, on my C drive here, I go to my Logistic webinar, I've got two Word documents here, one called Terms SendGrow, one called Terms Windsor. And major point is here is that the customer ID is actually part of the file name. And if I double-click on these, you'll see I just dumped some very simple text in here just to know that they were picking the right one. So if you wanted to take this and add it to a Logistic solution file, I'm going to put in order entry here. We can add add an action, and I'm going to say view terms for, and I'm going to again put in the variable for the customer ID. Next, for the file name, we've typically just had Crystal Report selected here. If you select custom, this opens it up to be any file on your hard disk. So what I typically will do is come in here and browse out to one of the files and go into the path and then just replace part of the data with a variable. So now if I was in this module, oops, not this one, and I go to Logicity, we'll see the item in here. It says view terms for Windsor. So again, it replaced that. You also notice in the file path here, it's automatically replaced and grabbed the correct terms Windsor document. So if I double click on this, it's just going to open it up in Word for me. If I go and pull up another custom order for SendGrow, you're going to see it's pulling their document instead. And again, basically any field that you've got on the screen can be made part of this logic that does this sort of replacement and finding the correct file automatically. So, we're doing something simple here for a terms document, but maybe you've got things like material safety data sheets for parts or drawing files and anything else. That becomes it's a very simple feature, but something that may help you solve a few issues that you've got to deal with.